You don't have to open your adventure by telling your players they show up in some place and now they have to introduce themselves. That's boring. Instead, there's a much better way to kick off your adventure that really captures their attention right from the get-go. The Latin phrase in medias res really captures this idea. It means in the midst of things, and that's exactly where you want your players to start off. Take this opening scene from Exandria Unlimited.
Fire. Everything feels slow. There's movement and there's heat, but the only noise you can hear, despite all this chaos, is breath. It's yours, but it's also a stranger's. It's like someone else is using your body to breathe. You're stumbling. Luis, I need you to describe your character and tell us your character's name, but I would love for you to do that with the understanding that your mouth is filled with blood.
Brennan wastes no time throwing the players into something exciting, and then lets the player introduce themselves given the context that they're in. In Skyrim's iconic opener, you start off as a prisoner being carted away for execution. Is it boring? Once you get past the 5-hour character creation, you're immediately put in the middle of the action. A big dragon comes out of nowhere, burning down the entire place, and now you've got to run for your life, otherwise you're barbecued. You can do this with your adventure by imagining how you can throw your players in the midst of trouble. Now, trouble doesn't necessarily mean combat related. Trouble can mean anything from a false accusation to a misunderstanding, or even in the midst of a calamity unfolding. In one adventure, I had players start off in the middle of a storm in the high seas as they were trying to keep their ship from sinking. And as each player had to do an obstacle, I let them introduce themselves and resolve the obstacle that they were facing. So let's say your players are in a bounty hunt. Rather than meet up in the tavern and discuss what's going on, you can make it so that your adventure starts off as players are taking their positions to raid the target's safe house. And as each player has to deal with a guard or an obstacle to get to their position, have them introduce themselves. The point is, where you start isn't nearly as important as how you start it. An action-oriented opening grabs the player's interest and makes them pay attention. So the next time you decide to let your players walk into a tavern, try throwing them in the midst of something exciting instead.